the save unlocked.
Did you see what he did with his rebound? Committed to the shooter. He had a guy crashing on the 2-on-1.
He got knocked down, side of the net, Blake, he takes a whack at it, Wall has to be ready again. Now a nice play, set, drop back, Svechnikov drops it for Hall, looking for Jankowski.
He's got to shoot there.
Aho back to Burns, Jarvis, Kane feed a shot, Aho gets it, he scores! On the power play! Jarvis sets up Aho, and Carolina's on the board. They trail 3-1.
There I am. How's everybody doing? This is the Canes Corner podcast. I am Adam Gold. We are here live at Lenovo Center for the final time in the regular season. Playoffs begin Sunday or Monday is my guess, my best guess. So we got a lot to talk about. We might even mention the fact that Rory McIlroy won the Masters. I don't know how many of you care. Maybe you don't. I do. We won't talk about it very much, other than I'm very happy that he did. And I wish that they had played the final round of the Masters Friday, so I didn't have to miss both Saturday and Sunday rounds. We're brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina, if it is for the exterior of your home. You can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Han and his crew do a great job. You should check them out for all of your exterior home improvement needs. Here's one thing we're not going to do today. We are not going to assign any level of import to the outcome of today's game or in a big picture way, what's wrong with the Hurricanes. Here's the deal. And I think I've been pretty consistent about this. There are certain elements of the team and their team game you want to see in good shape going into the playoffs. I thought the last two games told us everything we needed to know. There are some things that are somewhat alarming. We'll get to, but I just don't think that today, in the grand scheme of things, really means all that much. You would have loved to have won it. You would have loved to have gotten ahead of the game in the first period when you were dominant, not behind. But that isn't what happened. And I do think that once they played the first period that way, and by the way, after expending a lot of energy yesterday and a win over the Rangers, not that Toronto also didn't play yesterday. In fact, they played later and flew. So no excuse. But I just think that after the Hurricanes didn't get anything out of the first period, in fact, found themselves down. I just think they just didn't have it in the tank today to fight through a poor second period and come out, really hair on fire in the third. They weren't terrible in the third. They were better in the third than they were in the second, but then again, that's the low bar. So this is not about getting mojo back or anything like that. They found plenty of mojo in the last two performances. Yes, they lost a shootout against Washington, but they were awesome, dominant against the Rangers yesterday. And they were really probably that way against Washington too, and should have been ahead maybe by more than 2-0 in the first period. And it turns out they were only ahead 2-1, right? Which is similar to what happened today, only today was worse in that you got nothing out of the frame. I've already said we're brought to you by the Aluminum Company. Shouts to them one more time. I will, if we can, because I only have 3 items that I want to get to today. I will, if we can, try to get a couple of questions in if I can keep up. First, let's say hi to Kaniak Sessions, who is headed back to Surf City. What up, Griff? Callie Kaniak's checking in. Huntington, West Virginia. Blacksburg, Virginia. Go Hokies. Just Chris says that sucked. It didn't. I mean, unless you're a Justin Rose fan. Let's see. Wake Forest says hi. Greenville says hi. Eugene, Oregon. You got plenty of daylight left. You can go get an emergency 9 in. Stamford, Connecticut, and more goals for the aluminum company for Levi. Yeah, we'd like that. Maine says hello. Tell Cooper Flagg we said hi. And Tampa Bay, Florida. So if we do have a chance, I'll try to maybe entertain a couple of questions if we can. All right, let's start. Carrie says hi. Carrie, right over there. All right, let's start with, I think, issue number 1. We got to find Andrei Svechnikov, people. The Hurricanes don't have a lot of guys like Andrei Svechnikov on the roster. Right now, Andrei Svechnikov, if we were talking about, all right, let's do a depth chart based on performance of Carolina's, we'll just say, left wings. Andrei has almost exclusively played on the left side, though at times has played the right side. When he's playing with Staal and Martinook, he generally plays on the right. I like to see him on the right side in the power play. When he's on the power play, he's been on the second unit pretty much all year. Not all year, but certainly the last half of the year. So let's make a depth chart of Carolina Hurricanes left wings. Let's put Seth Jarvis, who's been playing the left side with Aho and Blake. So he is 1 on the depth chart. I'm going to put Eric Robinson and Jordan Martinook ahead of Andrei Svechnikov. Is he Carolina's 4th best left wing at this point? I think the answer is yes. It has been a very, very difficult season for Svechnikov. 70 games played. It ain't like he's missed a ton of time. 19 goals, 27 assists for Svechnikov. 19 goals and 27 assists. I mean, that we are talking about 46 points. We're talking about going back to Andrei's rookie season for a year in which he was honestly this anemic offensively. Of his 19 goals, 4 are empty net goals. So it has been a long stretch of not a lot for Andrei. A very long stretch of not a lot. In his last 18 games, 2 goals, 7 assists, 9 points, -4. That's before today. So in his last 19 games, 2 goals, 7 assists. He's not even providing as much, really, as Eric Robinson is or as Jordan Martinook is. I mean, in terms of his overall offense, he's providing a little bit more, but it's hardly noticeable. And they've tried everything. They tried playing him with top players, tried playing him with the captain and Jordan Martinook. They tried playing him on a line right now with, and I do think that Jesperi Kotkaniemi will draw back into the lineup on Wednesday and Thursday in Canada as we close out the season. And in other normal cases, I would say Andrei shouldn't play, but I think Andrei has to play. Has to. I got to figure something out with this guy. This is like the only really thing. I mean, I may mention one more thing about today, but 3 things jumped out to me with Andrei about this game today. The first is on the first goal, Toronto's goal late in the first period, the Pontus Holmberg goal. By the way, Holmberg has 7 goals this year. 3 of them are against Carolina. So it looked worse to me at real speed and at first look, but it still wasn't great. Holmberg was probably Andrei's responsibility, and how Holmberg gets to the front of the net. Now, at real speed, it looked to me like Andrei was just watching the puck, and I think he was. I'm not 100% sure he gets to him anyway, but the bottom line is Andrei had stopped playing defense. And so the rebound, Holmberg was crashing the net. And I think Andrei's got to stay with him. I mean, you had the initial coverage. I think you got to stay with him. So there's that. If you're not providing offense, at least do some little things defensively. Now, in fairness to Andrei, he shouldn't be immune to he shouldn't be like singled out when a lot of his teammates didn't necessarily play a spirited game after the first period, but that was in the first period when Carolina was dominating. And that little moment at the end of the period probably cost Carolina the game. Now, that's not all on him. I don't think that was a great rebound for Frederik Andersen to allow. I think Scott Morrow could have done better in front. Looked to me like he had an opportunity to intercept that pass or intercept the shot before it even got to Andersen, but Morrow didn't. I was pretty disappointed in the last two games of Scott Morrow. I think for Canes fans who want, now I know this is really more about Andrei, and we're going to get back to Andrei, but for Hurricanes fans who want to see Morrow not only this year but next year, and we talk about what kind of year he had in the American Hockey League, which if I were the team after these two games, I think Scott Morrow is going to go down and play in the playoffs for the Chicago Wolves. But if we want to see Morrow here next year in a significant role, like playing every game, in Carolina's lineup, he's got to be better than he was the last couple of games. Or maybe it was the Washington game where he was poor. I think it was the Washington game where he was poor, and he was better yesterday. But I didn't think he was great again today. So he has to learn how to gap up better on defense. He has to learn to when to pinch, when not to pinch. Now, there are guys who have been in the NHL for 15 years that don't necessarily know that answer either. But if you want to play here, you got to be smarter than I think what Morrow has shown, certainly the last handful of games. So I know that there are people who want to pencil him in for a top four role. Whoo, boy. I don't know if he's ready for that. And I'm not 100% sure, depending on what Carolina does in the offseason, if he even starts the season with the team here. It might be a good idea to send him to Chicago. We'll see what Morrow looks like at the start of training camp. But I think that is a real possibility that we don't even see Scott Morrow here to start the season. Again, depends on what Carolina does with existing players. Depends on Brent Burns. It depends on Dmitry Orlov. I don't think they'll really entertain re-signing Burns. I think there's a chance they re-sign Orlov, but I don't think it's a great chance. I think he would have to take a pretty low number from them to play another year. But for what it's worth, I thought he was really good today. Might have been Carolina's best player today. Which maybe says everything you need to know about today, especially after the first period. I actually thought Dmitry was really good today. And I thought there were a couple of situations where normally he would push to pinch up the wall when he probably shouldn't have. And today you could see in his brain who goes, nope, I should not do that. And I appreciated him, being a little bit more conservative in those situations. Those situations were when Carolina was still viable in the game. Anyway, back to Andrei Svechnikov, because I don't want to make this about Morrow or Orlov or Burns or, Gostisbehere or Walker. Andrei is too good of a player. He may never be the player that was drafted second overall. He is not as good a player as Brady Tkachuk. He's clearly not as good a player as Rasmus Dahlin. I do think he is better than the guy who was drafted 3rd overall. Yes, Perry Kotkaniemi. But, man, Andrei's just got to get out of his own head. So I mentioned the loitering on the play, okay, on the Pontus Holmberg goal. So that's not a good play. The second play is when Taylor Hall gives you the puck in a prime shooting area for you. Shoot the puck. I don't get, and he's not the only guy on the team that does this. We have a problem with Sebastian Aho that does this at times. In fact, he did it in the first period today. But holy cow, Aho isn't passing up that shot. You got to shoot that, Andrei. There's 2 times every game where you go, man, why isn't he shooting the puck? And then we'll go look at the stat sheet. He had 5 shots on goal. Like, how many really good scoring chances did Andrei have? 1, where he gloved the puck and dropped it to his feet from the side of the goal, which, frankly, could have scored. Man, so disappointing. Especially when your team needed a goal. Shoot it. Andrei right now, I'm thinking of like an old cliche, don't think you can only hurt the ball club. And I think Andrei right now is in a thinking too much type of a mindset, and he's hurting the ball club. He is not playing based on instinct. And Andrei's got to. On the bright side, we did see some hits today. I mean, there were 2 or 3 really good, big hits today. And that's what we need from Andrei. He's got to be hard to play against. And right now, yeah, he had a couple hits today. Right now, he's not that hard to play against. And that's too bad. So the third thing is on the power play, when Carolina was trailing 3-0, trying to get back in it, and you had the double minor. I think it was on the first part of this power play is when the second unit came on. Andrei had what one of my sons, who coached my younger son in soccer, used to call them hospital balls. And Andrei made a pass, I guess it was to Scott Morrow, who was the defenseman at the top of the umbrella on the second power play unit. And Andrei made a pass to him that had 0 on it, almost as though he tried to not pass it. Intercepted by Scott Lawton. It goes the other way, and Lawton just reared back and fired a slap shot. It beat Anderson, but it didn't beat the post. So we were lucky that it wasn't a shorthanded goal. But that is just an unbelievably bad giveaway inside the offensive blue line. And these are just the 3 things from Andrei today that I remember. So we have talked about Carolina's lineup going into the postseason. And I promise you this, there is a 0.00001% chance that when the Hurricanes line up against the Devils for game 1, a 0.00001% chance that Andrei Svechnikov is not in the lineup. In terms, as long as he's healthy. And we think he's healthy enough. Played today. I'm sure he'll play Wednesday. If not Wednesday and Thursday, I'm sure he'll play Wednesday. But I think the head coach is fed up enough to where I think Andrei's an option to come out of the lineup in a playoff game. And I am not kidding. Tyson Jost is your 14th forward. He will play in case of an emergency. Your 13th forward could come from any number of places. I think that list is getting shorter based on the way Logan Stankoven has played, and that was not a pun. I think Stankoven will definitely be in the lineup. I don't see how you're taking Robinson or Jankowski out of the lineup. Jankowski has played too well. He's a center. You need centers. He's part of the penalty kill. You need that. Got a long reach. And, oh, by the way, he's got 8 goals since arriving in the trade with Nashville. I think he stays in. I think Eric Robinson's been too good to not stay in the lineup. William Carrier just came back. He's looked good for 2 games. So here's the reality of it. And I think for the same reason, I think you keep Jankowski, definitely stays in. I think Kotkaniemi stays in. Canes need centers. And while Kotkaniemi isn't as good as they would like him to be, not as good as his contract is, not as good as some fans want him to be, still a pretty effective center, even if he plays in a diminished role on a 4th line, if that's what it comes to. But I don't think it'll come to that. I think he'll play with Taylor Hall and likely Andrei Svechnikov. But I think Andrei is on borrowed time. If his game doesn't improve, I think he comes out of the lineup at some point. Rod will give him every opportunity to turn this around. And maybe, I've said this before, when one season ends, when one phase of a season ends, and the next one begins, sometimes it's just a total reset. We've seen it in every single sport. Baseball, first half of the season, somebody's hitting 347. He's got 26 home runs and 79 runs batted in. All-star break, boom, he goes. Maybe he goes to the home run derby. I don't know. And in the second half, he's like, wow, why is he a 240 hitter? Because when there is a definite separator, sometimes you come back, even if it's not a layoff. Sometimes it's just a reset. And it can happen in a positive way, just like it can happen in a negative way. And I think that I don't discount the possibility that Andrei Svechnikov could hit the playoffs and boom, have a hot streak. It's not out of the realm of possibility. We know what he's capable of. But hope is not a strategy. And we need Andrei to show more signs of being good. And we just haven't seen it. Just haven't seen it. So I don't think there's a chance, really, that Andrei would not dress for a game 1 of a playoff series. But I do think there's a chance that if Andrei, for instance, plays like he did tonight, there is a good chance that 2-3 games into a playoff series, Andrei might be watching. Talk about a hit to the ego. That would be a major, major hit to the ego. I see Justin on in the chat has already had the Hurricanes losing to the Devils. I think that's kind of a loaded comment, and I'm not blaming Justin. I don't know why anybody would think that that's not possible, no matter how Carolina was playing. They could lose to the Devils. Anybody that has listened to this podcast, either yesterday or the time before, Do I think Carolina's better than New Jersey? Yeah. Not more dangerous offensively. But I think Carolina's better than New Jersey. But I looked at the money line for the series. Carolina's significantly minus money. The Devils are, I think, plus 200. I think it's not necessarily a toss-up series, but I give Carolina maybe a 55%, maybe a 60% chance of winning because they have the extra game here on home ice. But the Devils are good. Even without Jack Hughes, Dougie Hamilton will play in the playoffs. He'll be ready for the playoffs. He'll probably get one regular season game to play just to kind of get him on the ice, and then you'll see him in game one of that series. And Hamilton is a super talented offensive player. But even without Jack Hughes, that team is very good. So, I mean, saying, well, they're going to lose to the Devils is really a criticism of the Hurricanes, but they could lose to the Devils because the Devils are good. And the Devils might have an advantage in goal with Jacob Markstrom as opposed to Carolina with Pyotr Kochetkov and Frederik Andersen. And Andersen was okay today. It wasn't great today. Again, the rebound on the first goal, you like to see differently. I don't know if any of the other goals are really, Freddie problems. So, yeah, they could lose to the Devils no matter how good they're playing because the Devils are good. I mean, I don't see why that would be a total shock for anybody. All right, now to the goalies. Denny says that Allen is starting for New Jersey. Jake Allen's good too. I mean, I think Markstrom's been excellent, but maybe he's gone through a bad patch here. But we'll see. We'll see. As for Carolina's goalies, Freddie Andersen has a bad rebound, I thought, for the first goal. It was otherwise okay. And against Washington in Washington, I thought for the most part, Freddie was okay. Made a couple of big saves when they needed it. First period and third period, when they needed saves, pretty much made them. But I thought he was, in many ways, very Kochetkov-like for him being kind of all over the place and out of position. Now, part of that was I thought the defense in front of him wasn't very good, so it put Freddie in some vulnerable positions. But I thought that it certainly wasn't the Andersen that we had seen for a good stretch of games. It was better than the Andersen we saw in Boston, who was no good, but it wasn't anywhere near the level he had been the 8 previous games. Now, they don't need that Freddie Andersen to be successful in the playoffs. But they can't have the Freddie who played in Boston. And frankly, I'm not sure they can have the Freddie who played today. But I think if Carolina had scored a little bit in the first period, Carolina would have been better. And Andersen, because I think the goals were in some ways too easy for Toronto today. So, but here's the absolute truth. Freddie's going to start game 1. And he's probably going to start game 2. Because Pyotr Kochetkov, while the last 2 games were fine. They weren't great, but they were fine. Kochetkov has been too much of a mess to really have the trust of the head coach. He didn't have it last year. Andersen played too well early in the series against the Islanders, and Rod was trying to win that series with him, and they did in 5, but Andersen was kind of worn out by playing every other day. And I don't think Freddie can play every other day. So Kochetkov will have to be a factor in the first series against New Jersey. He just will. He's got good history against the Devils, by the way. I'll get to Mark's question in a minute. So let me get to the, and I've said this before about Carolina's goaltending plan. I think it won't be rotation, but it'll be kind of in between a rotation and using one guy. So I think one guy will play the majority of the starts, but I think they'll use both, and I think it'll be by design. Unless, of course, Kochetkov isn't any good. Like, Piotr has to be good in Montreal on Wednesday. Has to be good. Because if he's not, then he will just be there so the bench doesn't tip up in the air with the weight on the other end. He'll be the partner on the seesaw, making sure that you're not laying on the ground. My approach to these two games before we answer, actually let's answer Mark's question. Thoughts on playing 7D with Nikishin and taking out a Svech or another player? I think the chances of that are zero. Not even 0.00001. Zero. No way Rod goes with 7D and 11 forwards unless there are a bevy of injuries. And I think it's just useless to do that in the playoffs when you're probably going to play your top four more than you have during the regular season. You just can't have three defensemen barely playing. That's just not going to work. I think the chances that Nikishin plays in the playoffs, barring an injury, are also very slim. If he could get into a game in Montreal or Ottawa, I think it gives you a chance to see him. But I think you'd be asking for one of two things to happen. You're asking for an injury, which we don't really want. Or you'd be asking for someone to play really poorly, which we don't really want. I've said this about Nikishin a lot. I've heard people say that he should play. People that I respect. Not that he should play, that he will play. And I have never, ever understood why you would think that Nikishin is a better option than any of the guys Carolina has now. Because he isn't. Not sight unseen. Next year he is, but not next week. So it's just not going to happen. But in case of an injury, yeah, I think he's an option. And he's probably a better option than anybody they have in the minor leagues. This gets me back to, I really would have liked to see them add a depth NHL defenseman, because really there's nobody in the Chicago system right now that you would trust on the ice in a playoff game. I mean, Nikishin is your best option. Scott Morrow is your second best option. And I'm kind of milquetoast about Scott Morrow in the postseason. So, Dustin says, PK, too much of a mess after carrying the team for half of the year last year and half of the year this year, goes into a slump and it's a mess. You give Freddie way more grace than PK. Don't get it. Dustin, you clearly didn't watch Kochetkov this year. The Hurricanes handed it to Kochetkov. They applied zero pressure to him. Freddie missed 3.5 months of the season. Freddie played the first 4 games and was gone until the end of January. And in that time, Kochetkov had to fend off, air quotes, Spencer Martin and Dustin Tokarski. And Kochetkov wasn't any good. I don't care what he was last year. They don't care what he was last year. He hasn't been good enough this year. His save percentage is under 90%. You ain't putting that goalie on the ice in a playoff game unless you have to. I am not sitting here saying Freddie's great. I am sitting here telling you that he is their best option. And I'm sorry if you can't see that. Last year is last year. If we were sitting here talking about last year, we'd be pretty happy with Andrei Svechnikov. But we're not. It's this year. It's this year. Freddie's going to have to play. And if Kochetkov doesn't play well in Montreal on Wednesday, Freddie's going to have to play too much. Dustin, he wasn't top 10 in save percentage during Freddie's absence. He just wasn't. I've said this before, man. The five games that he played after the Four Nations face-off, the 5 games he played during that Four Nations face-off, not during, after, were awesome. Showed us what he could be. And the 6 games he's played since, or 5 games he's played, I guess 6 he's played since. Like the last one, we'll take that. Wasn't great, but we'll take that. Well, we got to be smarter. We got to be smarter than this. If you thought Kochetkov was a good enough goalie to carry you through a playoff series during the 3.5 months that Freddie was out, I got nothing for that. Nothing for that. Carolina outscored their problems through November. They outscored their goaltending through November. Once the goals went away, we saw the problems. They were staring us in the face. But we talked about the problems earlier. Quick approach to these 2 games. I think there are certain guys you have to get in. Tyson Joseph's going to play as long as he's not hurt. I think he's okay. He finished the game today. And I think you'll see guys who are battling it out for roster spots. Spots in the lineup. I think you'll see some of them play unless they need the day off. I think you'll see Andrei play. I'm not putting Andrei in that category, by the way. Not until we see him in the playoffs, because I think it'll be in the playoffs if Andrei doesn't produce where he becomes a candidate to come out of the lineup. So I think you'll see Jack Roslovic play these 2 games again unless he's hurt, because I think Roslovic is a candidate to come out of the lineup. I think you'll see Jesperi Kotkaniemi play these 2 games because he needs to get back up to speed. But I think Kotkaniemi is also a candidate. I'm not advocating for it. I think that this team needs Kotkaniemi to play. They need him to play the right way, which is direct, north-south, just like his buddy Andrei. So, and I think you'll see a whole bunch of guys from Charlotte play. I hope so. And I don't think we'll see Anderson again until the playoffs. I think on Thursday in Ottawa, some goalie for the Chicago Wolves will get that start. That is my prediction. What are the chances that Slavin gets a break? 100%. 100%. And if I were the head coach, I wouldn't let him board the plane to Montreal on Tuesday. I would leave Slavin at home. I would say, hey, Jacob, we'll pick you up at your house on the way to the airport, and then never go to his house. Leave him standing in the driveway with a suitcase. I also wouldn't bring Aho or Jarvis to Montreal. I'd leave them both at home. All right, that's let me throw one thing at you, and then we'll go. Today, we saw one of the top 15 players in the history of golf complete the career Grand Slam in spite of himself. Man, shouts to Rory McIlroy for getting it done. He tried not to. I don't think you'll see him choke again like he choked today and still won. He choked at the U.S. Open at Pinehurst last summer. He choked at the U.S. Open in L.A. the previous summer. He choked at the Open Championship at St. Andrews the previous summer. He tried to lose today. Or he tried so hard to win that he couldn't breathe and perform today. But when it mattered, man, lightning bolt to 2.5 feet to win it in the first playoff hole. Congratulations to him. Good for golf. Good for Rory. I think you'll see a lot more majors from him. And I think you'll see him soon. I wouldn't be shocked if Quail Hollow is like an annuity for him. He is the absolute odds-on favorite of Quail Hollow. All right, we're done. Appreciate your time. We are brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hanna and his crew do a great job. You should check him out. We'll see you after the Canes and the Canadiens, or what Canes there will be against the Canadiens on Wednesday, Thursday, and then it's playoff time, baby. See everybody then. I am Adam. Take it easy.